Hey everybody, welcome back to Young Engineers of Today. I hope you had a good weekend, and I hope yes, weekend, and I hope you're ready to continue. I couldn't remember what day it was today. We're going to continue with cybersecurity. Um, there's actually a fair amount less material here than I originally thought. So what is likely going to happen today is we're going to spend time going through the rest of the presentation that's here, and then depending upon how much time is left, we'll probably go back over to over the wire. Just because I was trying to leave enough time so that we could go through the rest of the cybersecurity presentation, um, and also leave enough time to go through whatever we had next. But I didn't realize that we actually only have this week and next week left for class. We are in the final 2 weeks of Young Engineers. So we don't actually have enough time to go over another set of materials before then, unfortunately. We might be able to cram something in there, but as it stands right now, you know, there's, there isn't anything necessarily new that we're going to be able to cover. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the rest of the presentation today. We'll probably have today be a short day. And then on Wednesday, depending upon how the material shakes out, we'll either continue with Over the Wire and probably move beyond Bandit, maybe, potentially, just to shake things up, especially because some of the later levels in Bandit also require RSA keys, which is a lot harder to sort of pick up and continue with, unfortunately. It's sort of, well, we'll see. Anyway, we'll figure it out, and we'll try and at least cover as much as we can in the next 3 sessions, because the fourth one is generally reserved for that is to say, the final class is generally reserved for some material of a bit of a different nature, and you'll see what it is. It's just more sort of talking about the future and things like that. But yeah, so let's go ahead and let's spend some time going over the rest of this presentation. So we talked about threats to cybersecurity, I believe. Let me just double check and make sure we didn't go... Okay, so yeah, we went over all this material. It's been long enough that at this point that I have to remind myself. Phishing botnet, yeah, okay. We didn't actually go over defenses. So just as a review, let's go over the threats real quick, and then we'll go over defenses, and then we'll move on from there. So if you're working in cybersecurity, there are a number of different things that you'll have to be aware of and defend against. It's all under sort of the blanket term known as malware, which is just software that harms computers, networks, or people. I mean, it's when you say, I've got a virus or I've got a worm or the adware or something like that, these are all in reference to malware. Now, malware can also refer specifically to programs that are, like spying programs or something like that, which would, I guess, be under the more specific term of Trojans. It can vary from person to person. But in general, malware is both a blanket term and also something that's used to refer to more specific types of programs. It's a bit confusing. Anyway, keylogger malware is a type of program that records every key struck on a keyboard that sends the information to an attacker. It's actually probably better to say that malware is the term for everything, and also the term for things that don't neatly fit into words that we already have. So like before adware was a thing, it was referred to as malware. And then we can now use adware in order to distinguish it from viruses and worms and things like that. Anyway, spam. Well, spam is just unsolicited emails that's sent to many, many addresses. If you guys have an email account, I'm sure you've dealt with spam before. Spam emails also can contain harmful content like malware sometimes. A virus is a computer program that can copy itself and cause harm in various ways. Most of my spam comes from my friends. Yeah, there's that too. Cause harm in various ways, such as stealing private information or destroying data. Viruses can be pretty nasty. It's one of those things where viruses, generally, if you're pretty smart about where you go and stuff like that, we've done a reasonably decent job of keeping viruses off of people's computers, although it used to be a much bigger risk back in the day. But that's not to say that it's never a thing. A lot of the companies, a lot of the websites that you visit, like Google and Facebook and YouTube and stuff like that, they have people who work very, very hard in order to keep viruses and the like off of their servers so that you don't run into them when you visit their websites. So just because you and I don't necessarily deal with it on a daily basis doesn't mean that these aren't things that don't exist anymore, but it used to be much more prevalent for the average user back 20 years ago. It used to be you could well, 25 years ago, put the wrong floppy into the computer and it has a virus on it, and suddenly your computer is completely corrupted, and in a fairly spectacular way too, because there was an essence of showmanship to it as well. Anyway, moving on. Botnet. Botnet is multiple computers on a network that are infected with a program that can be controlled remotely. The infected computers are usually used to cause damage that couldn't be achieved with a single computer. A botnet could be used for something like DDoSing, which is shorthand for distributed denial of service. A DDoS attack, or a distributed denial of service attack, basically makes an online service unavailable by overwhelming it with a flood of traffic. Like, imagine you're trying to have a conversation with your friends about, I don't know, whatever, cars, horses, computers, zombies, whatever the case may be. You're having a conversation with your friend, and then suddenly one person comes over and starts talking to you, asking you questions, and so you have to, like, okay, excuse me for a second, turn to them and answer their question or whatever, and they go back. And then another person comes by, and then 2 people, and then 4 people, and now imagine you're trying to have a conversation with your friend, and there is literally an entire crowd of people surrounding you guys, all trying to yell questions at you all at the same time. That's kind of like what a DDoS attack does. At some point, there are no more ports to talk on. There's no more bandwidth. Like the computer is completely tied up in resolving so many different requests that everything is effectively just it grinds to a halt. And that is generally one of the, well, if you have the resources, one of the simplest and most effective ways to shut down a server. That is to say, it's not efficient necessarily or elegant, and it also requires having numerous computers at your disposal, but regardless, it is certainly an effective way of bringing a server offline. Now, Stuxnet is a type of virus that is able to damage physical infrastructure, and I believe you guys might remember this. There is a real-world example of a virus that destroyed the nuclear centrifuges in Iran, and it is widely believed that the U.S. developed that virus. Whether or not it's been actually explicitly, admitted, I can't entirely remember that part, that detail of the story. But either way, that That would be an example of a Stuxnet. It messes with the computer that controls the centrifuges, making them spin too fast and essentially break themselves apart. You could have Stuxnet virus infect a controller for a factory, not turn on cooling fans when the factory reaches a certain temperature like it normally would. And then the machinery gets damaged and shuts down, or the factory catches fire or something. The Stuxnet viruses are nasty, specifically because they are able to very directly affect the physical world. So that's definitely one of those things that people, take special care to protect themselves against. That's not complete. Now, defenses. So encryption is a very simple defense, but it's very effective. It's the process of using codes to make readable information unreadable. Encrypted information cannot be read until it is decrypted using a secret key. So you've got things like, the RSA key that we were using in, I don't even know if no, we did get that far, I'm pretty sure, where we used the SSH key instead of using a password to get into Bandit 15. That would be an example of encryption. That is an encryption key. Anybody who's trying to basically poke in on the conversation that's happening between our computer and the one over the wire, they would get a bunch of nonsense because it would be encrypted. We have the decryption key, so we are able to communicate with that computer, and it makes sense to us, and it makes sense to the computer on the other end, but it doesn't make sense to anybody else who's trying to maybe like snoop in on the conversation, that sort of thing. Same goes when you use that RSA key. Firewall, software designed to block malware from entering protected networks. It's when you think about it, it's a pretty simple piece of software. It basically says, hey, things coming from this IP address, don't listen to them. Or you could have firewalls on the other side of the equation that are, hey, things that aren't coming from this IP address, don't listen to them. That's definitely what a lot of company level mainframes and stuff like that use. They prevent computers from being able to connect, open up network connections to actually talk to them unless they are from specific IP addresses. And that goes a long way towards increasing the defenses of a system, because if you make it so that you're only able to connect to a computer from an internal network, like say for instance, you're working for a company and you have a whole bunch of sensitive information stored on a computer in that company, you can make that computer completely blind and deaf to the outside world, and you can only connect to it from the company. Now, there are, of course, ways around that, but that's generally a very solid way of restricting access, because the ways around it also have some layers of protection of their own. So that does it for defenses. There are also things like antivirus and stuff like that look for strange processes that that are running on the computer, programs that are starting up threads with strange signatures and things like that, and behavior that they've recognized from other existing viruses, stuff like that. So the Internet of Things, that's what IoT is, and I think we went over this a few weeks ago as well, but I figure I'll go through it again, just because it's been long enough, and I don't think we ever really even finished it. So the Internet of Things, this is just a nice little graph showing basically the number of Internet-connected objects that exist in the world, and a projection for how many are going to exist in the future. So as you can see, it started in 1992 with 1 million, and there was just computers. 2003, same deal, but we're looking at 500 million now. By around the year 2000, the idea of connecting things that aren't computers, or rather strictly computers, to the internet becomes basically a seriously, an idea that's considered seriously. So by 2012, we have 8.7 billion devices connected to the internet as opposed to 0.5. Now, this number comes from the fact now there are things like fridges and watches that connect to the internet, clocks, televisions, all sorts of things. 11.2 billion in 2013. Now you've got, ovens and door locks and just all kinds of stuff. 14.4 billion 2014. I don't know when this was made, so I don't know how much of this is projection and how much of this is actual. Anyway, 14.4 billion in 2014, 18.2 billion in 2015, 22.9 billion in 2016, 28.4 in 2017, 34 and almost 35 in 2018, 42 in 2019, and 50 in 2020. So as you can see, there's a lot of stuff. It's a whole lot of stuff. And now we're talking about power outlets, we're talking about thermostats, we're talking about lights, we're talking about well, like I said, door locks. I mean, my dad, his house, he has a door lock that you can unlock using the internet. You have an app on your phone, and you can press a button and lock the door from your phone on the other side of the planet, and it'll tell you whether or not the door is locked and stuff like that. It's, there's a little bit more that goes into it than that, but anyway, there's a picture of a toothbrush here. Now, there are fancy toothbrushes which are connecting to the internet and recording your brushing habits so that you can look at them in like a graph and stuff like that on your smartphone. There are, Fitbits and things like that that go around your wrist and record how many steps you walk in a day and what you're doing, and a whole slew of other features like alarms and heart rate monitors and things like that, and collate all that data and place it and store it on the internet, and you can access an app from your phone and pull up all that information and look at it and see like, oh, I walked 15,000 steps less than I was supposed to yesterday, which presumably means that you were walking negative steps, because 15,000 steps is a lot. Anyway, at least I think it is. I feel like it is. Regardless, everything increasingly is just becoming connected to the internet. Yeah, okay. I'm glad you verified that for me, because I wanted, it sounded like it was a horribly high number, but then I was like, well, I've been known to do that before. It's like, wow, 300 steps is a lot, and people are like, that's like walking to the bathroom, man. It's like, oh, whoops. Anyway, the point is, we're beginning to realize that I guess not really the critical thing that's been missing, but something that has really facilitated an advance in our technology is not only the inventions themselves, but the ability for these inventions to talk to one another. Imagine if your fridge, the thermometer inside of it recognizes the fact that the temperature is getting dangerously high. So it wants to kick on the compressor to cool down the inside of the fridge. Well, it speaks to your fuse box and says, hey, I'm looking to do this. The fuse box goes, okay, I've got, I don't know, 5 amps running through me right now. Let me turn something else off or turn it down in order to provide you the power that you need. And so it talks to some light bulbs in another room and to the thermostat that's in the house. And the thermostat goes, it's time of day where the people aren't normally in there. They're out at work right now. It's the middle of the day, so they're not going to be there. And it goes, okay. And so it goes ahead and turns off the lights in that room. sends a signal to your computer to go into sleep mode. Your computer says, I'm not doing anything important, so it does it. It doesn't really make any sense because it wouldn't be on the same circuit. But anyway, so all that stuff turns on, fridge kicks on, cools everything down, goes, okay, I'm done, turns off, and then everything else turns back on as if nothing happened. That's what people are trying to do, because this is how you basically normalize energy use. One of the things that we've been struggling with in the last 30 years, 40 years, is the fact that electricity um, electricity use has been increasing incredibly, and it's just in the last 15 years really started to go back down again because people are like, whoa, man, we've been using a ton of energy, like we should really chill out on that. So it's only been then that this kind of stuff has become more and more reality, and on top of that, a lot of people want to move to more green energy and things like that, but the problem is it's not as uh, consistent and cheap and powerful yet as a lot of the, I guess you could say, dirty energy that we're running right now, like coal and oil and things like that. Natural gas, less so, but still not ideal. So doing stuff like this also sets the framework for those things to become more viable, because now you experience less of a crazy variance in load on the entire electrical grid. Imagine all of your stuff, your Fitbit, your toothbrush, your computer, your television, your fridge, they all keep track of what you're doing throughout the day, and like it asks you how you're feeling at the end of the day, and you go, well, I feel a little tired today. It goes like, well, that's because like you slept 45 minutes less than you normally do, and also you didn't walk as much as you normally do, and also you should probably brush your teeth a little bit more, and stuff like that. I mean, not wouldn't exactly make you feel good about your life, having your terrible habits thrown in your face constantly by a computer, but these are the kinds of things that people think of when they think of what kind of potential the Internet of Things has. There is a great possibility for basically an explosion of progress, because again, it's not just the inventions themselves, it's the ability for the inventions to communicate with one another and coordinate their actions in an intelligent way. However, I mean, it does bring up troubles of its own. You've got more things connected to the internet, so there are more potential nodes for attackers out there to find some sort of vulnerability in your home network. Imagine, how difficult it can be for people to keep up to date on security measures for their own computer at their home, for their router, for their laptop, for their phone. Now imagine you have to keep up on security updates for your fridge and your thermostat and your television and your light bulbs and your toothbrush and your watch and your vacuum cleaner and your cat bowl and your washer and dryer. Now, granted, a lot of these things just download security updates automatically because they don't want to leave it up to consumers to determine when to download it, because for many, many people, that's going to be almost never. But regardless, it's more work for these companies as well. It's more moving parts, more things to keep track of. Imagine you introduce a security update for your washer, and you introduce a security update for your oven, and they both are on the same network, and they both freak out at the presence of the other one, and they both go into like, I don't know, neither of them connect to the router, because that's how they handle security vulnerabilities, is they just dump themselves from the network. Not exactly an elegant solution, but I don't know, maybe like I can imagine that being a thing with an oven, because you really don't want somebody controlling your oven, of all things. Anyway, more moving parts, more things for people to get into. There are, password crackers, denial of service attacks. Imagine sending so many requests to your fridge that it shuts off. I mean, okay, even I'm laughing at that, but I don't know. The future's a crazy thing, like your toothbrush could get DDoSed. It starts turning on in the middle of the night. It's haunted. No, it's got a hacker. You've got man-in-the-middle attacks, which is actually a fairly common thing. An attack where, a third entity steals the data being transmitted between two parties or devices because, it can be difficult to crack into something in order to steal its information. However, it can be much easier to tap the line that they talk between and to get the information that way. Well, it can be. It depends. It depends on the nature of the communication. But it's a possibility. And I know I was talking about encryption and stuff like that. That will prevent against man-in-the-middle attacks because, they'll get information, but it'll be garbage. That's, of course, assuming that there was no key transaction that happened place during that, and suddenly they'll have the, the key, the encryption key and everything like that. Which brings you to compromised key attacks, an attack where the key to an encrypted communications exchange is stolen and then used to interpret the encrypted data. Woo! Sounds fun. Sounds amazing. You could generate a new key pair for whatever you're communicating with, but that's assuming you catch it fast enough. You could, theoretically speaking, not know that it's happening for weeks, and that could be a bad thing. Now, recommendations for these sorts of things: enable security features in all smart devices. Always keep the firmware updated on smart devices because they'll oftentimes put, security measures into the firmware as they become aware of new threats. Close any unused ports on all devices and routers because things like port sniffing is a very simple and easy way in order to find vulnerabilities. Well, coupled with, some other stuff. But anyway, use secure passwords. Please don't let your password be password 1234 or something like that. It's not a good idea. Patch vulnerabilities as soon as they're announced because the more people know about it, the more they're going to try and use it. Because all it takes is one person to come up with the idea and distribute the idea to other people, and they'll be able to use it. So people hear about it and they try it out on things. Utilize encryption for network and smart devices, when they're communicating. But let's take a look at these layers real quick. So you got the internet or cloud layer. This is the internet where the data usually ends up. Data sent to and from this layer are usually stored in huge data centers. We say the cloud like it's this big mystical thing, when in reality, it's a rack full of servers sitting in a crazy air-conditioned room. There is a physical location where everything's getting stored on the cloud. We talk about like, oh, all your data is stored in the cloud, like it's stored in 10 billion centers or something like that. It's just sort of floating out there in the sky for your data always to be safe. When in reality, it is being stored in a physical location just like everything else you use on your computer. It's just a different physical location from your computer. And that's not to say that like the stuff that you put out there is going to be necessarily easy to remove, because that's the tricky thing about the internet, is once you place something out there on the internet, you have to understand that it's going to be darn near impossible to make sure that nobody will ever be able to find it again, to remove all instances of it. But yeah, so that's the cloud layer. And then you got the session or the communication layer, which is where protocols like HTTP and HTTPS are used to communicate between physical devices and the internet. Well, applications of the internet, I should say. hypertext transfer protocol and hypertext transfer protocol secure. I believe that's yeah. Because I know HTTP is hypertext transfer protocol, but I believe HTTPS is just hypertext transfer protocol secure because it is a secure way to transfer information, hence secure. Then you go down a level to the router or smart hub layer, which is basically the access point for all of your smart devices or your computers to connect through the session layer to the internet. So think of it as your doorway to the internet. And then you got the link layer, which is basically a way for smart physical devices to be sent to the network and thus to the internet. So you've got, Ethernet, Wi-Fi, and Bluetooth. So these are the communications. See, I don't want to say communications protocol because that's sort of up here too. But like Bluetooth is a communications system and protocol. Anyway, these things all communicate with your router, which then communicates through HTTP to the internet, or just SSH. It could be. It really depends on who's doing what. Telnet. It's not going to be Telnet. SSL. Who knows? Then talk a little bit about encryption. Oh yes, encryption. So let me go ahead and bring up this video. I'll link it in the chat box so you guys can watch it. It's about 3 minutes long. I think both of these videos are 3 minutes long. And we'll watch those, and then I'll actually do it for today. So go ahead and mute myself while we watch that. Kind of neat, right? And the whole idea that the, both computers are involved in the key generation process in a way that essentially makes it impossible for anybody listening in to really get the key unless they have half of that information already, in which case they can probably, reverse engineer it. But anyway, um, it's a pretty interesting little bit of information there. Anyway, so that's encryption. It's basically just ever present in our day-to-day life nowadays, because so many things you do run through an encrypted channel in order to keep that data safe, that it's like you're using it all the time. And then there's hacking, which is the next one. So I'm going to link this one and again, mute myself. So there you go. Hacking. Well, it's a very general term, much more general than we tend to attribute it to be in life. An awkward way to put it, but it's a very general term referred to, yeah, like this like it was said in the video, creative problem solving, being able to think abstractly in order to solve an issue or get around, a limitation or whatever the case may be. So I think after that, guys probably realize that you have already done some hacking of your own, just maybe not computer hacking. Well, if you've been researching how to get to the next level in over the wire, you're a bit of a hacker. Just because, you aren't going over territory that somebody hasn't already gone over, doesn't mean you aren't a hacker yourself. But anyway, that is actually going to do it for today, so we're going to end a few minutes early. I'm going to leave it open for question and answer time. If you have any questions about anything, I'm here. Otherwise, you're more than welcome to head out. Wednesday, we'll leave it a little bit open. I think we'll probably spend some more time continuing with Over the Wire just so, we have something to do. But if I find some other material that's related and, is interesting and relevant and all that kind of stuff, well, maybe we'll do that on Wednesday and then next Monday. Who knows? We shall see. Time will tell. Other cliches. But yeah, so if you have any questions about anything, I'm here. Otherwise, you're more than welcome to head out and have a wonderful couple of days.